The last rays of sunset painted the wide Wyoming horizon in fiery orange when Isaac Turner fired his last bullet into the dusty earth of his wife's grave. The townsfolk of Broken Ridge who had gathered for Sarah Turner's burial flinched at the sound, but Isaac didn't notice. His weathered face, once quick to smile, had turned to stone. Without a word to anyone, he mounted his chestnut mare and rode away, leaving behind only hoofprints and whispers. That was in the spring of 1878. By winter of that same year, folks had stopped expecting Isaac Turner to show up for Sunday service or Saturday night gatherings at Callahan's saloon. The once sociable rancher had retreated to his homestead 5 miles outside of town, appearing only when absolutely necessary for supplies, and even then speaking not a single word beyond what transactions required. Tristan Novak didn't know any of this when her stagecoach rolled into Broken Ridge in January of 1879. The 24-year-old schoolteacher had only the promise of a position, a small trunk of belongings, and determination that outweighed her slender frame. The bitter cold that greeted her arrival seemed to have seeped into the very spirit of the town itself. "Miss Novak." Sheriff Miller tipped his hat as he helped her down from the stagecoach. "Been expecting you. Hope the journey wasn't too arduous." Tristan adjusted her woolen hat, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "It was quite an adventure, Sheriff. Though I must admit, I didn't expect quite so much snow." "Wyoming winters don't mess around, madam," he said with a wry smile. "Let me help you with your things. Mrs. Peterson's boarding house is all ready for you. School doesn't start for another week, so you'll have time to settle in." As they walked down the town's main street, Tristan noticed the curious glances from the townsfolk. A new face was always cause for interest in small communities, especially a young, unmarried woman. She'd grown accustomed to such scrutiny in her previous teaching position in Nebraska. The following days passed in a flurry of introductions and preparations. Tristan found the schoolhouse a simple one-room building at the edge of town in need of thorough cleaning and organization. The previous teacher had left rather abruptly after marrying a cattle baron from Montana, leaving educational matters in disarray. It was on a Saturday, her 5th day in Broken Ridge, when Tristan first encountered Isaac Turner. She had ventured to Decker's General Store to purchase supplies for the schoolhouse when she saw him, a tall man with broad shoulders hunched slightly, as if carrying an invisible weight. His dark beard was flecked with gray, and his eyes, when they briefly met hers, were the color of a stormy sky. "Morning," she offered with a polite smile as they both reached for the door. Isaac merely nodded, holding the door open without meeting her gaze again, then proceeded inside. Mrs. Decker, a plump woman with kind eyes, noticed Tristan's curious glance toward the silent man examining rifles on the far wall. "That's Isaac Turner," she whispered when Tristan approached the counter. "Used to be the friendliest man in the county before his Sarah passed. Typhoid took her last spring. Hasn't spoken more than necessary to anyone since. Some say he hasn't spoken at all." Tristan watched as Isaac methodically selected ammunition, placed coins on the counter without a word, and left the store, his spurs jingling softly with each step. "How terribly sad," Tristan murmured. "Indeed," Mrs. Decker sighed. "That man's heart died with his wife. Their ranch is still running, he works it alone now, stubborn as he is. Fired all his hands the week after the funeral." The story of Isaac Turner lingered in Tristan's thoughts as she prepared for her first day of teaching. 37 students ranging from 5 to 16 years of age filled the schoolhouse that Monday morning, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Among them was a solemn-faced boy of about 12, who introduced himself simply as Samuel Turner. "Are you related to Mr. Isaac Turner?" Tristan asked gently as she checked his name on her roster. The boy nodded. "He's my uncle. I live with him now." Tristan hadn't heard of a child living at the Turner Ranch. "I see. And do you enjoy living there, Samuel?" "It's all right," he answered with a shrug that spoke volumes. "Uncle Isaac doesn't talk much, but he makes sure I have what I need." Over the following weeks, Tristan learned more about Samuel. His parents, Isaac's brother and sister-in-law, had died in a wagon accident the previous year, leaving Samuel orphaned. Isaac had taken him in without hesitation, but from what Tristan gathered, the man provided for the boy's physical needs while remaining emotionally distant. On a particularly cold February afternoon, Tristan kept Samuel after class. "I notice you've been having some trouble with your arithmetic," she said. "Would you like some extra help?" Samuel shuffled his feet. "I'd like that, Miss Novak, but I need to get home. Uncle Isaac expects me right after school. Perhaps I could speak with your uncle about arranging some additional tutoring time?" Tristan suggested. The look of alarm on Samuel's face surprised her. "He doesn't like visitors," the boy said quickly. "And he doesn't really talk." "I understand," Tristan assured him. "But your education is important. Would he be very opposed to my stopping by?" Samuel considered this. "I don't know. Nobody comes to our place anymore." That weekend, Tristan borrowed a horse from Mrs. Peterson's son and rode out to the Turner Ranch. The landscape was stark but beautiful, with snow-covered hills rolling toward distant mountains. The ranch itself appeared well-maintained despite being operated by just one man, a testament to Isaac's determination and hard work. As she approached the main house, Tristan saw Isaac splitting wood in the yard. He paused mid-swing when he noticed her, his expression unreadable beneath his beard and the shadow cast by his hat. "Mr. Turner," she called, dismounting carefully. "I'm Miss Novak, Samuel's teacher. I hope you don't mind my calling without notice." Isaac lowered the axe and stood perfectly still, regarding her with those storm cloud eyes. He didn't speak, but he didn't turn away either, which Tristan took as permission to continue. "I wanted to discuss Samuel's schoolwork," she explained, approaching slowly as one might a skittish horse. "He's a bright boy, but he's struggling with some subjects. I'd like to offer him additional help after school hours, if that meets with your approval." Isaac's gaze shifted briefly toward the house, where Samuel stood watching from a window. After a long moment, he gave a single, curt nod. "Thank you," Tristan said. "Would it be acceptable if he stays an extra hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays?" Another nod. "Excellent. And might I trouble you for a glass of water before I head back to town? It's quite a ride." This request seemed to unsettle Isaac more than her arrival had. His brow furrowed slightly, but after a moment, he gestured toward the house. Inside, the Turner home was surprisingly comfortable. Simple furnishings, clean and well cared for, filled the main room. A stone fireplace provided warmth, and bookshelves lined one wall, evidence of a household that once valued learning and literature. Samuel appeared relieved when his uncle allowed Tristan inside. "Would you like some coffee instead, Miss Novak?" he offered eagerly. "I can make it." "That would be lovely, Samuel. Thank you." While the boy busied himself at the stove, Tristan noticed Isaac standing awkwardly by the door, as if unsure of his place in his own home with a visitor present. "You have a fine ranch, Mr. Turner," she said, "and a wonderful nephew. He speaks very highly of you." Isaac's expression didn't change, but he moved to hang his hat on a peg by the door, a small concession to civility that Tristan counted as progress. The brief visit established a routine. Samuel stayed after school twice weekly for tutoring, and occasionally Tristan would ride out to the ranch on Saturdays to check on his progress and deliver books she thought might interest him. Each time, Isaac acknowledged her with nods or gestures, but never words. March brought the first hints of spring to Wyoming. The snow began to recede, revealing patches of earth eager for warmth and new growth. Tristan found herself looking forward to her visits to the Turner Ranch, though she told herself it was solely for Samuel's benefit. One Saturday in late March, she arrived to find Samuel sick in bed with a fever. Isaac met her at the door, his face lined with worry he couldn't verbalize. "May I see him?" she asked. Isaac nodded, leading her to the boy's small bedroom. Samuel was pale and sweating, his breathing labored. "How long has he been like this?" Tristan asked, placing a hand on the boy's forehead. Isaac held up 2 fingers. 2 days? Has Dr. Wilson been out to see him?" A shake of the head. "The road to town is quite muddy from the thaw," Tristan observed. "Would you like me to stay with Samuel while you fetch the doctor?" The relief in Isaac's eyes was answer enough. He nodded gratefully and was gone within minutes, the sound of galloping hooves fading quickly. Tristan set to work immediately, dampening cloths to cool Samuel's fever and helping him sip water when he woke. As she tended to the boy, she noticed a small framed photograph on his bedside table, a smiling woman with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple style. "Is this your Aunt Sarah?" she asked softly when Samuel stirred. He nodded weakly. "Uncle Isaac gave it to me. He has the same one by his bed. She was beautiful, Tristan said. Would you like to tell me about her? Through broken sentences interrupted by coughing, Samuel shared memories of his aunt, how she taught him to fish, baked cinnamon rolls on Sundays, and sang while she worked around the house. Uncle Isaac used to laugh a lot when she was alive, the boy finished sadly. He doesn't laugh anymore. He doesn't even smile. Hours passed before Isaac returned with Dr. Wilson. The physician diagnosed Samuel with a severe case of influenza, but assured them that with proper care, the boy would recover. Someone should stay with him through the night, Dr. Wilson advised as he packed his bag. His fever could spike again. I can stay, Tristan offered, looking to Isaac for approval. Again, that flicker of relief crossed his features, followed by a nod. After the doctor left, Tristan and Isaac established a silent partnership in caring for Samuel. She prepared broth in the kitchen while Isaac built up the fire. They took turns sitting by the boy's bedside, changing cool compresses and administering the medicine Dr. Wilson had provided. Night fell, and Samuel's condition improved slightly. His breathing became more regular, and his fever decreased. Around midnight, Tristan found herself fighting to stay awake in the chair beside his bed. You should rest, came a voice so unexpected that Tristan nearly jumped. Isaac stood in the doorway, his voice rough from disuse but unmistakably clear. His own surprise at having spoken was evident in his widened eyes. You spoke, Tristan said softly, mindful of the sleeping boy. Isaac swallowed hard, his hands clenching briefly at his sides. You should rest, he repeated, the words coming easier this time. There's a spare room. I'll watch him. Tristan stood, moving carefully past Isaac in the narrow doorway. Thank you. Please wake me if his condition changes. Isaac nodded, settling into the chair she had vacated. As Tristan left, she glanced back to see him gently adjusting the blanket around his nephew's shoulders, his face softer than she had ever seen it. In the spare room, which she suspected had once been Isaac and Sarah's bedroom, Tristan found herself too stirred by the day's events to sleep immediately. The sound of Isaac's voice replayed in her mind. 2 simple sentences had revealed a voice deep and resonant, like distant thunder. She must have eventually drifted off, because the next thing she knew, sunlight was streaming through the curtains. She hurried to Samuel's room, finding the boy awake and significantly improved, though still weak. Isaac was nowhere to be seen. Uncle Isaac went to check on the horses, Samuel informed her, his voice hoarse but stronger. He told me to tell you there's coffee in the kitchen. Tristan paused. He told you? He spoke to you? Samuel nodded, his eyes bright despite his illness. He said a whole sentence, Miss Novak. He hasn't done that since. Well, since Aunt Sarah. In the kitchen, Tristan found not only coffee but a simple breakfast laid out: bread, preserves, and some dried fruit. She was spreading preserves on a slice of bread when Isaac entered from outside, stamping mud from his boots. Good morning, she greeted him. Samuel is much better today. Isaac hesitated, as if weighing whether to retreat back into silence. Good, he finally said, the single word seemingly requiring great effort. Thank you for breakfast, Tristan continued, determined to normalize conversation with him. And for allowing me to stay the night. Isaac poured himself coffee, his back to her. Thank you for helping with Samuel. For more words, Tristan felt almost lightheaded at this unexpected progress. Of course, he's a wonderful boy. Isaac turned, meeting her eyes briefly before looking away. The road back to town is still bad. You should wait until afternoon. That's very considerate of you, Tristan said, hiding her smile behind her coffee cup. I'd be happy to help with Samuel until then. The day passed quietly. Samuel's fever broke completely by noon, and he was able to eat a small bowl of stew that Tristan prepared from the provisions in Isaac's well-stocked larder. Isaac himself moved between the house and the barn, tending to necessary chores but returning frequently to check on his nephew. Each time he entered the house, he would exchange a few words with Tristan, brief, practical communications about Samuel's condition or the weather, but words nonetheless. By mid-afternoon, when the time came for Tristan to return to town, Isaac had spoken more in a day than he had in nearly a year. I'll come by tomorrow to check on Samuel, if that's all right, Tristan said as Isaac helped her mount her borrowed horse. We'll be here, he replied, adjusting her stirrup with careful hands. As she rode away, Tristan glanced back to see Isaac still standing in the yard, watching her departure. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge what she had been trying to ignore for weeks. Her interest in Isaac Turner had grown beyond professional concern for her student's guardian. Spring advanced across the Wyoming territory, turning the landscape from browns and grays to tentative greens. Samuel recovered fully and returned to school, his academic performance improving steadily under Tristan's guidance. Her Saturday visits to the Turner Ranch continued, ostensibly to provide additional educational materials, but increasingly because both she and Samuel looked forward to them. Isaac, too, seemed to anticipate her visits. Though still a man of few words, he now consistently greeted her upon arrival and engaged in brief conversations. He began timing his indoor chores to coincide with her presence, mending tack at the kitchen table while she reviewed Samuel's work, or repairing clothing while she read aloud to the boy. One Saturday in early May, Tristan arrived to find Samuel nowhere in sight. "He's helping the Andersons brand calves," Isaac explained, coming out to meet her. "Their boy broke his arm, and Samuel offered to help. Won't be back until supper time." "Oh," Tristan said, suddenly uncertain. Her visits had always centered around Samuel. Without him present, she wasn't sure whether she should stay. "Perhaps I should come back another day then." "You could stay," Isaac said quickly, then looked away, embarrassed by his eagerness. "If you'd like. I was about to fix the fence in the south pasture. You could. Keep me company." The invitation surprised her. "I'd be happy to help, Mr. Turner." "Isaac," he corrected her. "Just Isaac." Tristan smiled. "Isaac then." They walked together to the pasture, Tristan carrying a small bucket of nails while Isaac shouldered the tools. The day was pleasantly warm, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of new grass and distant mountains. "How long have you had this ranch?" Tristan asked as Isaac examined a broken fence post. 15 years, he replied, setting down his tools. "Bought it when I was 23. Just a shack and 100 acres then. And now, 500 acres. Better house." He paused, then added quietly, "Sarah helped design it." It was the first time he had voluntarily mentioned his wife's name to Tristan. She treaded carefully. "Samuel has told me a little about her. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman." Isaac nodded, focusing on measuring a replacement post. "She was." After a moment, he added, "She would have liked you." The simple statement warmed Tristan more than the spring sunshine. "I think I would have liked her too." They worked in companionable silence for a while, Tristan holding posts steady while Isaac secured them. Occasionally their hands would brush, and Isaac would withdraw quickly, as if the contact burned. "How did you become a teacher?" he asked eventually, surprising her with his curiosity. Tristan handed him another nail. "My father was a professor in Boston. I always loved learning, and I wanted to share that with others. When my parents passed, I decided to head west. There's such need for education out here. You're far from home." "Home is where you make it," she replied with a smile. "I've grown quite fond of Broken Ridge. And the people here." Isaac glanced at her, then quickly back to his work. "Even the unfriendly ones. Especially those," she said lightly. "They're usually the most interesting once you get to know them." A ghost of a smile touched Isaac's lips, so brief Tristan almost missed it. But it was there, a momentary softening of his habitually stern expression that revealed a glimpse of the man he had once been. By the time they finished mending the fence, the afternoon had begun its slow transition toward evening. Walking back to the house, Isaac surprised Tristan again. "Would you stay for supper?" "Samuel would be disappointed to miss you entirely." "I wouldn't want to impose," Tristan said, though she very much wanted to accept. "It's no imposition," Isaac assured her. "There's plenty." In the kitchen, Tristan discovered another side of Isaac Turner. He moved with unexpected grace as he prepared a simple but hearty meal, his large hands somehow deft with a knife as he cut vegetables for a stew. "Sarah taught me," he explained when he caught Tristan watching him. "Said a man ought to know how to feed himself properly." "She was right," Tristan said, setting the table as Isaac had requested. "Though I must admit, you cook better than I do. My boarding house meals are adequate, but Mrs. Peterson favors quantity over quality." "You should eat here more often," Isaac said, then immediately focused intently on stirring the stew, as if startled by his own suggestion. Samuel returned just as supper was ready, excited to find Tristan still there and full of stories about his day with the Andersons. The three of them ate together in what felt remarkably like a family meal, with Samuel's chatter filling the spaces between Isaac's occasional comments and Tristan's questions. As darkness fell, Isaac insisted on riding back to town with Tristan. "Roads aren't safe after dark for a woman alone," he said, in a tone that brooked no argument. They rode side by side under a canopy of stars, the silence between them comfortable rather than strained. Near the edge of town, Isaac slowed his horse. "I want to thank you," he said, his voice low in the darkness. "For what?" "For Samuel." "For?" He struggled to find the words. "For not giving up when I wouldn't speak." Tristan's heart quickened. "I'm glad I didn't." "So am I." In the moonlight, his eyes seemed softer than she had ever seen them. At Mrs. Peterson's boarding house, Isaac helped Tristan dismount, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. "Good night, Miss Novak." "Tristan," she corrected gently. "Just Tristan." Another ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Tristan, then. Good night." "Good night, Isaac." As May turned to June, a subtle but significant shift occurred in the relationship between Tristan and Isaac. Her Saturday visits extended beyond educational matters, often including shared meals and conversations that stretched into the evening. Isaac began to speak more freely, though still a man who chose his words carefully. Occasionally, Tristan would bring small gifts, a book she thought he might enjoy, wildflowers for the table, or cookies she'd baked with Mrs. Peterson's reluctant permission to use the boarding house kitchen. The people of Broken Ridge noticed the change in Isaac Turner. When he came to town for supplies, he now exchanged greetings with shopkeepers and neighbors. He began attending church again, sitting quietly in the back with Samuel, but present nonetheless. And although he never mentioned Tristan by name to others, the townsfolk weren't blind to the connection between the taciturn rancher's reemergence into society and the pretty schoolteacher's regular visits to his property. One Wednesday afternoon in mid-June, Tristan was surprised to see Isaac's wagon outside the schoolhouse after classes ended. Samuel ran ahead while Isaac approached Tristan more slowly, hat in hand. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. "Not at all," Tristan assured him. "Is everything all right?" "Fine," he said. "I was wondering if you might like to join us for supper tonight. Samuel caught some trout this morning, and we have more than we can eat." The invitation delighted her. "I'd love to. Let me just gather my things." Inside the schoolhouse, Tristan quickly tidied her desk and collected her books. As she was about to leave, Mrs. Henderson, a member of the school board and one of the town's most prolific gossips, appeared in the doorway. "Miss Novak, I was hoping to discuss next term's curriculum with you," she said, her gaze shifting past Tristan to where Isaac waited by his wagon. "But I see you have other plans." "Yes, I've been invited to the Turner Ranch for supper," Tristan replied evenly. "Perhaps we could meet tomorrow after school?" Mrs. Henderson's lips thinned. "I must say, Miss Novak, some members of the community are concerned about the amount of time you've been spending with Mr. Turner." Tristan felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I assure you, my relationship with Mr. Turner is entirely proper. I began visiting his ranch to help Samuel with his studies, and a teacher's reputation must be above reproach," Mrs. Henderson interrupted. "Frequent unchaperoned visits to a widower's home raise questions, regardless of educational intentions." Before Tristan could respond, a deep voice spoke from behind Mrs. Henderson. "Mrs. Henderson." Isaac's tone was polite but firm. "Miss Novak has been kind enough to help my nephew improve his schoolwork. Any concern about propriety should be directed at me, not her." Mrs. Henderson turned, clearly startled to hear Isaac speak. "Mr. Turner, I meant no offense. It's just that, if it would ease your mind," Isaac continued, "you're welcome to join us for supper. Samuel caught plenty of fish." The unexpected invitation left Mrs. Henderson momentarily speechless. "Aye, that is. I've already promised my husband I'd prepare his favorite roast this evening. Perhaps another time." "Of course," Isaac said with a slight bow. "The invitation stands. Miss Novak, are you ready?" The ride to the Turner Ranch was initially quiet, with Samuel sensing the tension and keeping uncharacteristically silent in the back of the wagon. "I apologize for Mrs. Henderson," Tristan finally said. "She means well, but you have nothing to apologize for," Isaac interrupted. "I should have considered how our arrangement might appear to others." Tristan's heart sank. "If you'd prefer I stop visiting, no," he said quickly, his hand moving to cover hers where it rested on the wagon seat between them. That's not what I meant. The warmth of his calloused hand sent a flutter through Tristan's chest. What did you mean, then? Isaac kept his eyes on the road ahead, but his hand remained on hers. I meant that I should have been more careful with your reputation. It's important for a teacher. My reputation isn't as fragile as Mrs. Henderson believes, Tristan said. Besides, Samuel is always present during my visits. Not always, Isaac reminded her softly, referring to the day they had mended fences together. True, she acknowledged. But nothing improper occurred. Isaac's thumb moved almost imperceptibly across her knuckles. No, he agreed. Nothing improper. The evening passed pleasantly despite the earlier tension. Samuel proudly helped prepare the trout he had caught, and Isaac produced a bottle of wine he had been saving for a special occasion. After supper, they sat on the porch watching fireflies emerge as twilight deepened, Samuel eventually dozing off in his chair. I should get him to bed, Isaac said, lifting the boy easily in his arms. I'll be back in a moment. When he returned, Isaac brought a shawl for Tristan against the cooling night air. He draped it gently around her shoulders, his fingers brushing against her neck. Thank you, she murmured. Isaac settled beside her, closer than before. Tristan, he began, then hesitated. Mrs. Henderson was right about one thing. People talk. Let them, Tristan said with more boldness than she felt. I've done nothing wrong, and neither have you. No, he agreed. But I've been thinking about this for some time now. He turned to face her fully. I care for you, Tristan, more than I thought I could care for anyone again. The admission, simple yet profound, left Tristan momentarily speechless. Isaac, you don't need to say anything, he interrupted gently. I know it's too soon. I know I'm not what most women would want. A widower with a ranch and a boy who isn't even mine by blood. Isaac, Tristan tried again, turning toward him. I care for you too. Very much. In the silver moonlight, she watched emotion play across his face, disbelief, hope, and something deeper. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, Isaac leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss so tender it brought tears to her eyes. When they separated, Isaac's hand came up to cup her cheek. I never thought I'd feel this way again, he whispered. After Sarah died, I thought that part of me died too. I'm glad it didn't, Tristan said, covering his hand with her own. Isaac smiled, then a real, full smile that transformed his face and revealed the man he had been before grief had carved its deep channels into his soul. It was like watching the sun break through storm clouds, sudden and breathtaking. Tristan caught her breath. You're smiling. Isaac touched his own lips, as if surprised to find them curved upward. I suppose I am. The weeks that followed were filled with a cautious courtship. Isaac began escorting Tristan to church on Sundays, sitting beside her in the pew with Samuel. He brought small gifts when he came to town, wildflowers he had picked along the way, a carved wooden box he had made himself, once even a ribbon for her hair that he had carefully selected at Decker's store with Mrs. Decker's enthusiastic assistance. Tristan, for her part, found herself looking forward to each moment with Isaac with an intensity that both thrilled and frightened her. She had come to Wyoming to teach, not to fall in love. Yet here she was, counting the hours between their meetings and dreaming of his rare but increasingly frequent smiles. The school term ended in early July, and with it came uncertainty for Tristan. Her contract with Broken Ridge had been for 1 year, with the option to renew for the following term. The school board had already expressed their desire for her to continue, but Tristan found herself wondering if teaching was still what she wanted most. On the last day of school, Isaac arrived to walk her home, a now familiar ritual that still caused whispers among some townsfolk and approving nods from others. I have something to show you, he said as they walked past the main street toward a meadow on the outskirts of town. If you have time. For you. I have time, Tristan replied, slipping her hand into his. Isaac led her to a spot overlooking a small creek, where a blanket had been spread beneath a cottonwood tree. A basket sat in the center, alongside a small bouquet of wildflowers. A picnic? Tristan asked, delighted. Samuel helped, Isaac admitted. He's with the Andersons again today. They settled on the blanket, and Isaac produced a simple but lovely meal: fresh bread, cheese, cold chicken, and apple tarts that Tristan suspected came from Mrs. Decker's kitchen rather than Isaac's. As they ate, Isaac seemed unusually quiet, even for him. "Is something troubling you?" Tristan finally asked. Isaac set down his food and looked at her directly. "The school term is over." "Yes," she agreed, waiting for him to continue. "Will you stay in Broken Ridge?" The question carried more weight than its simple words suggested. Tristan considered her answer carefully. "I've been offered the position for next year. And will you accept it?" "That depends," she said, her heart racing. "On what?" Tristan gathered her courage. "On you, Isaac. On us." Isaac's eyes widened slightly. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, which he kept enclosed in his palm. "I've been carrying this for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment." He opened his hand to reveal a ring, a simple gold band with a small pearl at its center. "It was my mother's," he explained. "Sarah had her own, from her family." Tristan's breath caught in her throat. "Isaac." "I love you, Tristan," he said, the words coming easier now than they would have months ago. "I never expected to love anyone after Sarah. I never wanted to. But you sat beside me until I remembered how to smile, how to live again." Tears filled Tristan's eyes as Isaac continued. "I know we haven't known each other long. I know I'm not the easiest man to love. But if you'll have me, I want to make a life with you. You, me, and Samuel. A family." "Yes," Tristan whispered, the word escaping before she could even think. "Yes, Isaac. I love you too." With hands that trembled slightly, Isaac slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms for a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. They were married in the Broken Ridge Church on a warm August day in 1879. Samuel stood proudly as Isaac's best man, while Mrs. Peterson, who had grown fond of her boarder despite her initial reservations about Tristan's relationship with the once silent rancher, served as matron of honor. The entire town turned out for the occasion, including Mrs. Henderson, who had eventually come around after accepting several invitations to supper at the Turner Ranch and witnessing firsthand the genuine affection between Isaac and Tristan. After the ceremony, as guests gathered at the Turner Ranch for the celebration, Tristan found a moment alone with her new husband on the porch where he had first kissed her. "Happy?" Isaac asked, his arm around her waist. "Completely," she assured him. "Though I must confess, I'm nervous about one thing." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Teaching Samuel at home, now that I've resigned my position. He's a bright boy, but he can be stubborn." Isaac laughed a full, rich sound that still surprised her every time she heard it. "He comes by it honestly. Between the two of us, I think you'll manage just fine." "Between the 3 of us," Tristan corrected, placing a hand on her abdomen with a meaningful smile. Isaac's eyes widened. "Are you certain?" Tristan nodded. "Dr. Wilson confirmed it yesterday. I wanted to tell you today, when you were already happy." "Tristan," Isaac whispered, gathering her in his arms. "You've given me back everything I thought I'd lost: hope, joy, a future, a family. And you've given me a home," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "Something I've been searching for much longer than I realized." From inside the house came the sounds of their wedding celebration: laughter, music, the clinking of glasses as toasts were made. But for that moment, they remained on the porch, holding each other as the summer sun began its descent toward the distant mountains. "We should go back inside," Tristan eventually said. "Our guests will wonder where we've gone." Isaac nodded but made no move to release her. "In a minute," he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I'm still getting used to this." "To what?" "Happiness," he replied simply. "I'd forgotten what it felt like." As autumn painted the Wyoming landscape in golds and reds, life at the Turner Ranch settled into a new rhythm. Tristan took to ranch life with enthusiasm and determination, learning from Isaac and contributing her own ideas for improvements. The house, already comfortable, became truly a home under her care, filled with books, music, and the scent of home-cooked meals. Samuel thrived with both an uncle and aunt to guide him, his academic progress accelerating under Tristan's daily tutelage. He took particular interest in Tristan's pregnancy, asking countless questions about the baby and offering to help prepare the nursery. On a crisp October morning, as Tristan and Samuel worked through his mathematics lesson at the kitchen table, Isaac entered with an unexpected announcement. "I hired 2 hands today," he said, removing his hat. Brothers from Montana looking for steady work. Tristan looked up in surprise. Since Sarah's death, Isaac had stubbornly maintained the ranch alone, with only Samuel's help as the boy grew old enough to take on more responsibilities. That's wonderful, she said. Will they live in the bunkhouse? Isaac nodded. It needs some work, but they'll start Monday. I thought, with the baby coming, I should be able to spend more time here. With you. The consideration behind the decision touched Tristan deeply. She rose from her chair and crossed to him, taking his hands in hers. Thank you. Isaac's fingers tightened around hers. I don't want to make the same mistake twice, he said quietly. Work is important, but family more so. Samuel looked between them, understanding more than they sometimes gave him credit for. Can I be excused to finish my reading outside? It's nice today. Tristan nodded, and the boy gathered his books with suspicious haste, clearly giving them privacy. When he had gone, Isaac pulled Tristan closer. I've been thinking about names for the baby. Have you? Tristan smiled, pleased by his involvement. The pregnancy had awakened a protective tenderness in Isaac that revealed yet another layer to the complex man she had married. If it's a girl, he said carefully, I thought perhaps Sarah. Tristan felt tears spring to her eyes at the suggestion. Some women might have been uncomfortable with their husband honoring his first wife in such a way, but Tristan understood. Sarah would always be part of who Isaac was, part of the family's history. Sarah is a beautiful name, she agreed, touching his face. And if it's a boy? I thought you might have ideas about that, Isaac said. Tristan considered. What about James? After my father. James Turner. Isaac tested the name. It's strong. I like it. They were still standing in each other's arms when Samuel burst back through the door, his reading forgotten. Uncle Isaac, the new colt is coming. The bay mare's having her foal. The excitement of new life on the ranch consumed the rest of the day. By sunset, a wobbly-legged colt stood beside its mother in the barn, with the Turner family watching in wonder from the stall door. What will you name him? Tristan asked Samuel, knowing Isaac had promised the boy he could name the spring's first foal. Samuel studied the dark colt thoughtfully. Promise, he finally declared. Because he's like a promise that good things keep coming, even after bad things happen. Isaac's arm tightened around Tristan's shoulders. That's a fine name, Samuel. A very fine name indeed. Winter came early to Wyoming that year, with the first heavy snow falling before Thanksgiving. The Turner Ranch was well prepared, with full hay barns, stocked root cellars, and plenty of firewood split and stacked. The two hired hands, Jim and Thomas Reynolds, proved to be hard workers and pleasant company, joining the family for Sunday dinners and helping Isaac with projects around the property that he had long postponed. As Christmas approached, Tristan's pregnancy advanced to the point where her condition was unmistakable. Dr. Wilson estimated the baby would arrive in late February, though he cautioned that first babies sometimes came early or late. You're healthy as a horse, he assured Tristan during a checkup in early December. Just make sure you rest when you need to, and don't try to do too much. Isaac took the doctor's instructions to heart, insisting that Tristan delegate more household tasks and rest frequently. His concern would have been stifling if it hadn't been so endearing. I'm pregnant, not made of glass, she reminded him one evening as he insisted on bringing her tea in bed. Humor me, he replied, sitting beside her on the edge of the mattress. I've never been a father before. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. The admission of vulnerability, delivered with a self-deprecating smile, melted any resistance Tristan might have offered. You're doing wonderfully, she assured him, taking the tea. And you already are a father, in all the ways that matter. Look at Samuel. Isaac glanced toward the door, beyond which Samuel was presumably reading in his own room. He makes it easy. He's a good boy. Because he has a good example, Tristan said. She set down her tea and took Isaac's hand, placing it on her rounded abdomen just as the baby delivered a solid kick. Isaac's expression of wonder never failed to move her. Strong, he murmured. Like his mother. Or her father, Tristan countered with a smile. Christmas at the Turner Ranch was a joyous affair. The house was decorated with pine boughs, red ribbons, and candles, filling the rooms with festive scents and warm light. Samuel had invited his friend David Anderson for the holiday dinner, while the Reynolds brothers joined them as well, creating a larger gathering than the ranch had seen in years. After dinner, as they all sat around the fire exchanging small gifts, Tristan watched Isaac interact with their guests, laughing at Jim Reynolds' stories, discussing cattle prices with Thomas, listening intently to the boys' excited chatter about their new sleds. The transformation from the silent, isolated man she had first met was remarkable. Later, as they prepared for bed, Tristan mentioned her observation. "You've changed so much since I first met you." Isaac considered this as he banked the fire in their bedroom. "Not changed exactly. Found my way back, perhaps." "Back to who you were before?" "No," he said thoughtfully. "Not exactly the same. I'll never be that man again. But someone new. Someone who carries the past, but isn't defined by it." Tristan crossed to him, wrapping her arms around him from behind as best she could with her pregnant belly between them. "I'm proud of you, Isaac Turner." He turned in her embrace, kissing her forehead. "I'm grateful for you, Tristan Turner." Every day, January brought bitter cold and deep snow that isolated the ranch for days at a time. Isaac worried about Tristan's condition, particularly when the baby seemed to drop lower, signaling preparation for birth still weeks away according to Dr. Wilson's estimation. "I don't like being so far from town," he confessed one night. "What if the baby comes early and we can't get the doctor?" "Women have been having babies without doctors for centuries," Tristan reminded him, though she shared his concern. "And Mrs. Reynolds was a midwife back in Montana. Jim told me she delivered dozens of babies before they moved here." The information seemed to ease Isaac's mind somewhat. "Still, I'd feel better if you want to stay in town as your time gets closer. We could rent rooms at the hotel, be near Dr. Wilson. And leave you and Samuel out here alone?" "Absolutely not," Tristan said firmly. "This baby will be born at home, with his family around him." The matter seemed settled, but fate had other plans. 2 weeks later, in the early hours of a frigid February morning, Tristan woke to sharp pains and dampness in the bed. "Isaac," she whispered, clutching his arm. "The baby. It's coming." Isaac was instantly alert, lighting the lamp beside their bed. "Are you certain?" "It's still early." Another contraction answered his question, causing Tristan to gasp and grip his hand tightly. "I'll get Jim to ride for the doctor," Isaac said, helping her into a more comfortable position before hurrying to dress. Within minutes, the ranch was a flurry of activity. Jim Reynolds rode out through the pre-dawn darkness toward town, while his brother Thomas helped Isaac heat water and gather clean linens. Samuel, awakened by the commotion, was given the task of keeping the fires built up throughout the house. By mid-morning, Tristan's labor had progressed significantly, but there was no sign of Jim returning with Dr. Wilson. A heavy snow had begun falling, further complicating matters. "The baby isn't waiting," Tristan gasped between contractions. With or without the doctor, Isaac had never felt so helpless. He sat beside her, offering what comfort he could, while Thomas, who had assisted his wife with deliveries in the past, prepared as best he could. "You're doing fine, Mrs. Turner," Thomas assured her. "Everything looks normal, just like my Lucy described." As noon approached, Tristan's contractions came faster and stronger. Isaac remained by her side, his face a mask of concern as he wiped her brow with cool cloths and offered encouragement. "You're the strongest person I know," he told her, his voice steady despite his fear. "You can do this." Tristan managed to smile through her pain. "We're doing this together," she reminded him. "Our baby, our family." Just as Thomas announced that it was time to push, hoofbeats sounded in the yard. Moments later, Jim burst through the door, snow-covered and breathless. "Dr. Wilson was out on another call," he reported. "But I brought Mrs. Anderson. She's delivered plenty of babies." Rebecca Anderson, mother of Samuel's friend David, entered the bedroom with calm efficiency. After a quick assessment of the situation, she took charge, positioning herself at the foot of the bed while Isaac supported Tristan from behind. "When the next pain comes, push down hard," Mrs. Anderson instructed. "Your baby's ready to meet you." What followed was the most intense and miraculous hour of Isaac and Tristan's life together. With tremendous effort and courage, Tristan brought their child into the world, a healthy baby girl with a shock of dark hair and a powerful set of lungs. "A daughter," Isaac whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as Mrs. Anderson placed the swaddled infant in Tristan's arms. "We have a daughter." Sarah, Tristan said softly, touching the baby's tiny hand. Sarah James Turner. Isaac looked at her in surprise. James. For my father, Tristan explained. Both our families, together in her. Unable to speak through his emotion, Isaac simply gathered his wife and daughter close, pressing his forehead to Tristan's in a gesture of profound intimacy and gratitude. Later, when mother and baby were resting comfortably and the house had quieted, Samuel was allowed to meet his cousin. He approached the bed cautiously, his eyes wide with wonder at the tiny bundle in Tristan's arms. Would you like to hold her? Tristan offered. With careful instruction from Isaac, the boy cradled baby Sarah in his arms, his expression solemn with responsibility. She's so small, he marveled. But she grabbed my finger really hard. Strong, like her mother, Isaac said, echoing his words from months before. And her father, Tristan added with a tired smile. And her cousin too. Samuel beamed at being included. I'll teach her everything, he promised. How to ride, and fish, and count to 100. I'm sure you will, Isaac agreed, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. As February gave way to March, and the first hints of spring began to emerge from beneath the snow, life at the Turner Ranch adjusted to accommodate its newest member. Sarah proved to be a good-natured baby, with her father's dark hair and her mother's curious eyes. Isaac took to fatherhood with surprising ease, spending hours simply holding his daughter, speaking to her in soft tones about the ranch, the animals, and the family she had joined. Samuel appointed himself Sarah's official protector, checking on her frequently and proudly showing her off to visitors. When Dr. Wilson finally made it out to the ranch to examine mother and baby, he found both thriving under the care of their devoted family. You've done well, all of you, he pronounced. That little girl is lucky to have such a family around her. As spring advanced, bringing new calves, fresh grass, and longer days, Tristan gradually resumed her activities around the ranch, with baby Sarah often cradled in a sling across her chest. Isaac had built a cradle for the kitchen, allowing Tristan to keep the baby near while she worked, and another for the porch where they often sat in the evenings, watching the sunset over their land. On a particularly beautiful evening in late April, as they sat together on that porch, Isaac with his arm around Tristan, Sarah sleeping in her cradle nearby, and Samuel sprawled on the steps whittling a piece of wood, Tristan was struck by the fullness of her happiness. What are you thinking? Isaac asked, noticing her contemplative expression. I was thinking about the first time I saw you, she replied. In Decker's store, looking so unreachable. Isaac smiled ruefully. I was lost then, walking through life without really living it. And now? He tightened his arm around her shoulders. Now I'm found, he said simply. You found me, Tristan. You and Samuel, and now Sarah, you're my compass. My home. Samuel looked up from his whittling. Uncle Isaac, you're getting sentimental again, he teased, mimicking a phrase he had heard Thomas Reynolds use. Isaac laughed, the sound carrying across the ranch yard. That I am, nephew. That I am. As twilight deepened into night, with stars appearing one by one in the vast Wyoming sky, the Turner family remained on their porch, bound together by love that had overcome grief, silence, and solitude. In the gentle spring breeze, promises of the future whispered of Sarah's first steps and words, of Samuel growing into a fine young man, of Isaac and Tristan growing old together on the land they both cherished. And in that moment, under that star-filled sky, it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 5 years passed, bringing changes both expected and surprising to the Turner Ranch. Sarah grew from a baby into a spirited young girl with her father's determination and her mother's quick mind. Samuel, now 17, had developed into a skilled rancher and was considering attending college in Denver, with Isaac and Tristan's full support. The ranch itself had prospered under their joint management. Isaac's practical knowledge combined with Tristan's organizational skills had led to expanded herds, improved pastures, and a reputation for quality that brought buyers from as far as Chicago. The bunkhouse now housed 4 permanent hands, plus seasonal workers during the busiest times. Perhaps the most unexpected development had come 2 years after Sarah's birth, when Tristan gave birth to twins James and Elizabeth Turner, who were now active 3-year-olds with a talent for finding mischief wherever they went. On a warm summer evening in 1884, as the family gathered on the expanded porch of their home for supper, Isaac looked around at the lives intertwined with his and marveled at how much had changed since that dark day when he had fired a bullet into the earth above Sarah's grave. Samuel was deep in conversation with Thomas Reynolds about cattle breeding, while Tristan supervised the twins' somewhat messy attempts at eating independently. 5-year-old Sarah sat beside her father, solemnly reading to him from a book she had mostly memorized. When the meal was finished and the younger children put to bed, Isaac and Tristan walked hand in hand to the ridge overlooking their property, a private ritual they maintained whenever possible. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" Isaac asked as they watched the last rays of sunlight fade from the distant mountains. Tristan leaned against his shoulder. "Sometimes, if I hadn't taken the teaching position in Broken Ridge, if Samuel hadn't been in my class, if you had continued to push everyone away, if you hadn't been so stubborn," Isaac added with a smile, "if you hadn't finally spoken to me that night when Samuel was sick." Isaac brought her hand to his lips. "I'm grateful every day that you didn't give up on me, that you sat beside me until I remembered how to smile. And now you smile all the time," Tristan observed. "Even when the twins decide to give the chickens a bath." Isaac laughed at the memory of that particular misadventure. Life is never dull with 3 children underfoot. 4, counting Samuel, Tristan corrected gently. "Always counting Samuel," Isaac agreed. "Though soon he'll be making his own way." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the breeze carrying the scent of sage and summer grass. "I have something to tell you," Tristan said finally. "Something I've suspected for a few weeks now." Isaac turned to face her fully, recognition dawning in his eyes. "Tristan, are you?" She nodded, her smile radiant in the gathering dusk. "Dr. Wilson confirmed it yesterday. By winter, there will be another Turner at the ranch." Joy spread across Isaac's features as he gathered her close. "I thought our family was already perfect," he said. "But it seems it can be even more so." As darkness settled over the Wyoming territory, Isaac and Tristan Turner made their way back to the house they had built together, not just the physical structure with its solid walls and warm hearth, but the home they had created through love, perseverance, and the courage to begin again after loss. Inside, their children slept peacefully. Outside, their land stretched toward the horizon, promising future harvests and generations. And between them flowed the love that had begun with a stubborn schoolteacher who refused to accept a broken man's silence, and a grieving widower who found, against all expectations, that his heart had room to love again. That night, as on so many nights before, Isaac Turner fell asleep with a smile on his face and gratitude in his heart for the woman who had brought him back to life, one patient moment at a time.